The night was electric. The studio lights beamed down on the stage, casting sharp shadows over the gleaming floor. The audience was buzzing with excitement. Tonight's live talk show was about to feature two of the most iconic figures of the modern world, Keanu Reeves, the humble and introspective actor, and Elon Musk, the innovative tech mogul who often seemed to orbit in a world of his own. They were worlds apart in personality and reputation, and the producers were sure it would make for an interesting conversation. But no one could have predicted the moment that would shake the entire world. Keanu was seated to the left of the stage, his calm demeanor in stark contrast to the exuberance of the show's host. Elon, on the other hand, sat with a confident smirk, ready to share his latest projects and ideas with the public. It was a meeting of minds that could spark anything, or so they thought. The host, a quick-witted personality with a sharp sense of humor, started the show with the usual banter. The audience laughed, but as the conversation deepened into the heart of the tech and entertainment industries, the tension began to rise. Then, out of nowhere, the host threw out a question that caught both guests off guard. "So, gentlemen," the host began with a sly grin, "we all know the impact of technology, especially when it comes to shaping our future. But what about the human side of things? Do you ever think we've lost touch with the most basic things, like, kindness and real human connection?" There was a brief pause. Elon raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the question. Keanu, however, gave a small, knowing smile. He had been asked similar questions before, but this time it was different. Elon leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table in front of him. "Well, I believe technology is advancing at such a rapid pace that at times people just don't have a choice but to adapt. If we're not pushing the limits, we're being left behind. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Human connection evolves just like everything else." Keanu shifted in his seat. His calm expression remained unchanged, but his eyes seemed to pierce through the moment. "Maybe that's the problem," he said softly but firmly. "In our rush to evolve, we're forgetting what makes us human in the first place. Technology doesn't replace the need for empathy. It amplifies it, or it should. But we can't lose sight of the things that matter most, like compassion." The room went silent. The host's smile faltered for just a second. The studio audience, once laughing and applauding, now sat on the edge of their seats. The tension in the air was palpable. Keanu's words weren't just an opinion, they were a challenge. Elon's face tightened, and his eyes narrowed slightly. "I disagree," he shot back. "Technology is progress. The world doesn't move forward by holding on to the past. People can't just sit around and think that kindness is enough. Sometimes you have to be ruthless to succeed." Keanu's calm expression didn't waver. "Ruthlessness might get you ahead in the short term, but at what cost?" he replied, his voice steady, but carrying an undeniable weight. "Maybe we need to remember that winning isn't everything. Being human." The host shifted uncomfortably in his chair, sensing the growing tension. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What was supposed to be a friendly discussion about the future of technology and entertainment had suddenly turned into a clash of ideologies. In that moment, everything changed. The audience could feel the crackle of raw emotion in the air, and as the conversation spiraled into deeper and more personal territory, everyone at home knew that this was not going to be just another interview. This was a confrontation, one that could alter the way the world saw these two icons. Keanu leaned back slightly in his chair, his gaze never leaving Elon. His words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. "I'm not saying technology isn't important. I'm just saying there has to be more to life than just being the best. There has to be more than just winning." The silence that followed was deafening. The tension between them was so thick it could be cut with a knife. As the host awkwardly shifted topics, trying to lighten the mood, the audience was left stunned. They weren't sure what they had just witnessed, but they knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The world was watching, and Keanu Reeves had just done something no one expected. He had put Elon Musk in his place. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward even when things get tough? The drama had just begun, and everyone was waiting for what would happen next. The aftermath of the live talk show was nothing short of explosive. What had started as a casual conversation between two of the most well-known figures in the world of technology and entertainment quickly spiraled into something far more heated. Keanu's simple but pointed challenge to Elon Musk's views on progress, technology, and humanity had struck a nerve, not only with Elon, but with the entire world watching. As the days passed, the media exploded with commentary. Headlines were everywhere. Keanu Reeves puts Elon Musk in his place. The battle of ideologies, Keanu versus Musk, and even, has Elon Musk finally met his match? Twitter was ablaze with debates, opinions, and memes. People were split into two distinct camps, one championing Keanu's vision of a more compassionate, empathetic world, and the other backing Musk's relentless pursuit of technological advancement. But the drama didn't end there. Behind the scenes, Elon Musk was far from pleased. Known for his intense focus and sometimes controversial statements, he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. A few hours after the show aired, he took to social media with a blunt tweet that immediately sent shockwaves across the internet. Keanu's idealism sounds good in theory, but it's not going to change the world. Progress doesn't wait for anyone. Let's talk. It was a clear message. Elon was ready to take this battle to the next level. Keanu, ever the private person, could have easily ignored the tweet and let things die down. But instead, he did the unexpected. He responded not with anger or snark, but with a calm and thought-out reply. He tweeted, "I believe progress can happen without sacrificing our humanity, but we all have our own way of seeing the world. Respect." It was simple, but it cut to the heart of the issue. Keanu wasn't backing down either. In fact, he was inviting a deeper conversation. He wasn't attacking Elon. He was trying to bridge the gap. This quiet, respectful exchange between the two men turned into a full-blown public spectacle. Elon's followers were incensed, calling Keanu naive and out of touch with reality. Keanu's supporters rallied behind him, praising his grounded and thoughtful approach to the issue. The situation grew more intense when a tech conference, where both Keanu and Elon were scheduled to appear, became the next battleground. The conference was supposed to be a space for innovation, for discussing the future of humanity and technology. But now it was shaping up to be the perfect stage for an ideological showdown. Weeks before the conference, rumors began circulating that the two might be asked to share the stage together for a live debate. Elon's team remained tight-lipped, but Keanu's representatives confirmed that he was open to the idea. The media speculated wildly about what could happen next, and then, as expected, the conference organizers made the announcement. Keanu Reeves and Elon Musk will face off in a live debate on the future of technology and humanity. Be sure to tune in. It promises to be an unforgettable conversation. The world couldn't believe it. The two figures who had been at the center of so much attention were finally going to meet head-on. The debate was scheduled for a prime-time slot, ensuring a global audience. As the day of the debate approached, tension in the air was palpable. Keanu, usually calm and reserved, seemed oddly quiet. His friends and colleagues were nervous. Was he prepared for the relentless force that was Elon Musk? After all, Elon was known for his sharp wit and unflinching confidence. Keanu, however, wasn't worried about winning a debate. His goal was different. He wanted to connect with people, to make them think about something bigger than the race for technological supremacy. He was determined to make his message clear. Humanity had to come first, no matter the cost. On the other hand, Elon Musk, ever the visionary, had been rehearsing his arguments, sharpening his rhetoric. He saw this as an opportunity to make his case to the world, that the future was shaped by progress, and progress meant change. If Keanu couldn't see that, then he would be the one left behind. The stage was set. The world was waiting for what promised to be the most talked-about event of the year. But as the time drew nearer, an unexpected thought began to linger in Keanu's mind. Maybe it wasn't about proving who was right or wrong. Maybe it was about showing the world that even the greatest minds could find common ground, and that, in the end, it was not about technology or idealism, but about understanding. The night of the debate arrived, and the tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. The audience at the conference was packed, the energy electric. Every eye in the room was fixed on the two men who, despite their differences, shared a platform that could alter the course of history. Keanu and Elon were about to face each other in a way no one had ever seen before. The gloves were off, but the question remained. Would this be the confrontation that the world had been waiting for? Or would it be the beginning of a new chapter, one where both sides could find a way to move forward together? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The world was on the edge of its seat, waiting for what would come next. The night of the live debate arrived with a palpable tension that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Every major news outlet, every social media feed, and every tech blog had been building up to this moment. The stage was set in one of the grandest halls in the city, lights blindingly bright, cameras poised, and thousands of eager eyes glued to the screen. It wasn't just a debate. It was a clash of ideals, and the world was ready to witness it. Keanu Reeves walked in quietly, as he always did, with his calm demeanor and focused gaze. His suit was simple but perfectly tailored, a reflection of the man he was, unassuming, yet profound. The room fell silent when he entered, as people admired his unshakable tranquility. He wasn't here to win, he was here to make a statement. His stance was firm, but he carried a quiet confidence, not the arrogance of someone ready to dominate, but the calm of someone who knew his truth. On the other side of the stage, Elon Musk entered with his usual flair. He strode confidently, a slight smirk playing on his lips, exuding the energy of a man who was always thinking 10 steps ahead. His attire was as futuristic as his ideas, a tailored black jacket with subtle techie embellishments. The crowd cheered as he took his seat, his presence commanding attention. Elon was ready to defend his vision, the vision of a world shaped by technology and relentless innovation. The host stepped forward and introduced the evening's event, a debate on the future of humanity in the age of technology. Keanu and Elon would each have their say, followed by a Q&A session. The audience was on the edge of their seats, knowing that the moment they had been waiting for was about to unfold. The host began with a soft, neutral question. Gentlemen, we are living in a time where technology is moving faster than ever. Elon, you've built companies like Tesla and SpaceX, changing industries and pushing humanity to the stars. Keanu, you've made a name for yourself as someone who chooses humility over the limelight, emphasizing kindness and the human connection. In a world increasingly driven by tech, so my question is, where do you see humanity in 10 years and what role does technology play in that vision? Keanu took a deep breath before speaking, his voice steady and thoughtful. I believe that humanity at its core needs to evolve not just in terms of technology, but in how we connect with each other. Technology is a tool, a powerful one, but it's not the answer to everything. We can innovate, but we must also remember that empathy, kindness, and compassion are what ultimately bind us. Without those qualities, even the most advanced technology won't bring us happiness. If we continue to race ahead without looking back to our humanity, I fear we may lose what makes us truly alive. The room was quiet as his words settled in. Keanu didn't shout or demand attention. He simply spoke from the heart, offering a perspective that resonated with many in the audience. The quiet power of his message hung in the air, and for a moment, even Elon seemed to pause, considering his words. Elon shifted in his chair before responding, his voice a little sharper but still composed. I get where you're coming from, Keanu, but I think you're missing the point. We're talking about the future, and the future doesn't wait for us to catch up emotionally. Progress isn't about being kind or compassionate, it's about solving real-world problems. We need to advance technology to address the existential issues facing humanity: climate change, space exploration, and sustainable energy. If we don't push for innovation, we risk stagnation. Progress is survival. Keanu met Elon's gaze, his expression still calm, but now with a hint of firmness. I'm not saying we shouldn't innovate, Elon. What I'm saying is that without humanity at the center of that progress, it becomes nothing more than a race to nowhere. You're right that there are real-world problems, but solving them purely with technology, without considering the impact on people, on lives, isn't the answer. We need to create a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around. The debate had begun to heat up. What started as a civil conversation had transformed into a real ideological divide. Elon argued that innovation was the path to a better world, that technology would propel humanity forward into a new era. Keanu, however, countered that technology, while essential, was not the sole answer. He warned that in the pursuit of progress, humanity's most vital qualities could be overlooked. As the debate raged on, the audience became more and more engaged. The passion in the room was palpable. Each point was met with applause or murmurs, of agreement or disagreement. Both men spoke with conviction, but what became clear was that they were not just debating technology, they were debating the very soul of the future. Was it about speed, efficiency, and progress, or was it about balance, compassion, and understanding? The host tried to moderate, but even he could sense the intensity of the clash. At one point, Elon seemed to grow frustrated, his voice rising, as he addressed Keanu. You talk about empathy and kindness, as though those are the solutions to the world's problems, but they aren't. You can't feed a growing population or protect the planet just with good intentions. You need innovation, data, and action. Keanu responded calmly, almost gently. And what happens when that innovation leaves people behind, Elon? What happens when people lose their jobs to machines, or when communities are left in the dust, because technology moves faster than they can keep up? I'm not saying we abandon progress, but we must take a step back and remember why we're doing it in the first place. It's about people, not just numbers. For a brief moment, Elon seemed taken aback. The intensity of the debate had pushed him to his limits. But Keanu's words had struck a chord. The crowd fell silent as the two men locked eyes, each unwilling to yield, but perhaps beginning to understand the other's point of view. The tension was high. What began as a fiery exchange had now evolved into a dialogue, not about who was right or wrong, but about the deeper issues at play. The audience was no longer just watching two famous figures argue. They were witnessing a clash of ideas that represented the very essence of the world they were all living in. As the debate carried on, something in the air shifted. The audience, once polarized by the sharp divide between Elon Musk's pragmatic, future-focused vision and Keanu Reeves's heartfelt, human-centered philosophy, began to sense a subtle change. For the first time in hours, the conversation wasn't just a clash of ideologies. It was morphing into something deeper, more personal. The moderator, sensing that the discussion was beginning to take on a life of its own, decided to bring things into a more vulnerable space. The audience had already heard the bold claims and the intellectual back and forth. But now the moderator shifted the tone, asking a question that none of the panelists had expected. Gentlemen, if we strip away all the technology, all the grand visions and big ideas, what drives you deep down? What is it that keeps you going when the world feels like it's moving faster than you can keep up? There was a moment of silence. Elon shifted in his seat, his confident smirk briefly faltering. He wasn't used to questions that poked at the heart of his motivations. For a brief second, the billionaire tech mogul looked like a man caught off guard, as though this was a space he wasn't sure he wanted to enter. But then, with characteristic determination, he leaned forward and began to speak. For me, Elon said slowly, it's about solving problems. I'm driven by the idea of making humanity better, of ensuring that we have a future on Mars, of creating sustainable energy solutions that will outlast us. I'm constantly thinking about the bigger picture, the survival of humanity. That's what pushes me even when it's hard, even when I fail. His words were heavy with a passion that was undeniable, but there was also something else, a hint of vulnerability, a crack in the armor. The audience could sense it, but the next words that came from him caught them completely off guard. But, he continued, it's also hard, to see the pressure on those around me, the sacrifices, the people who lose their jobs because of automation. Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it. Elon paused, his eyes looking down for a brief moment before meeting the camera. But I keep going because I believe in the greater good, even if it means pushing through some of the hardest moments of my life. The room fell silent, a tension, building as Elon revealed a more personal side than the world was accustomed to seeing. He wasn't just a ruthless visionary, he was someone carrying the weight of his choices, wondering if he could ever balance the cost of his ambition with the lives of those he was trying to help. Keanu, ever perceptive, leaned forward in his chair. The vulnerability in Elon's words had made an impact on him, and in that moment, Keanu could feel the opening to share something deeply personal. It was time to move beyond ideas and theories. He cleared his throat and spoke softly but deliberately. I think for me it's different. I'm not driven by a grand vision of the future, but by the present, by the connections I make with the people around me. It's the small moments, the relationships, the way we treat each other, and the kindness we give, even when things are tough. Keanu paused for a moment, glancing out into the audience, as though gathering his thoughts. There's a lot of noise in the world, people pushing for bigger, better, faster, but I've seen enough to know that the real treasures lie in the moments of quiet, in the way we show up for each other, in how we listen, in how we help one another heal. He glanced briefly at Elon. I guess I've always believed that the world doesn't need more technology for the sake of technology. It needs more love, more empathy. The audience was still, hanging on every word. Keanu's voice had taken on a raw, honest quality that even the most hardened critics couldn't dismiss. There was a purity to his message, one that transcended the usual idealism and touched on something deeper. And yes, Keanu added, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. I get it. The world is changing faster than anyone can keep up with, but we need to make sure we're not just moving forward for the sake of moving forward. There's a difference between progress and growth. One might get us further, but the other, it might just make us better. The words hung in the air as if time had slowed. Elon didn't immediately respond. He didn't have the retort he usually would have shot back with. Instead, he sat there quietly, his gaze distant, as if Keanu's words had struck a chord deeper than he was willing to admit. It was then that Keanu decided to press further. You know, Elon, he said quietly, his voice more personal now, it's not just about being right. It's about what we're building for the future, for our kids, for the next generation. You talk about Mars, but sometimes I wonder if we're forgetting what's right in front of us here on Earth. The mention of Mars was not a direct challenge, but an invitation to reflect. For the first time, Keanu seemed to be less about debating Elon's stance and more about urging him to think about his legacy. Not just the technological breakthroughs, but how the world would remember Elon Musk, not just as a businessman, but as a person. What kind of world would he leave behind? Elon's expression hardened again, but this time there was something different about it. He wasn't dismissing Keanu's words, he was processing them. The moderator noticed the change in energy and decided it was time to move the conversation forward. It seems like we're getting into some deeper waters now. We've talked about progress and humanity's future, but maybe it's time to get a little more personal. What do both of you see as the most important thing we should be focusing on right now? But before either could answer, the audience erupted in applause. The emotional weight of the conversation had shifted the entire dynamic. It wasn't just a debate anymore. It had become a reflective moment, something more profound than anyone had anticipated. For the first time in a long while, both Keanu and Elon sat in a shared silence, two men with completely different approaches to the future. But each slowly, realizing that perhaps the path forward wasn't as clear-cut as they had once believed. The room buzzed with energy, the crowd still buzzing from the raw emotion and unexpected vulnerability shared by both Keanu and Elon. The debate had evolved into something far more meaningful than anyone had anticipated. The tension, once palpable, had started to dissipate into a sense of mutual respect. The two men, both giants in their respective fields, were no longer just defending opposing ideologies. They were now exploring the complexities of the human experience. And in that moment, the debate wasn't just about technology, it was about humanity itself. The moderator, sensing the shift in tone, chose his next question carefully. "Gentlemen," he began, "we've heard your visions for the future. We've heard your personal motivations. But now I want to ask you something more difficult, something that many of your followers, your fans, your supporters may not understand." He paused, making eye contact with both Keanu and Elon. "Are you willing to change your course? Are you willing to embrace the other's perspective, to bridge the gap between progress and humanity?" The question hung in the air like a weight, and the audience fell into a deep silence, waiting for one of them to answer. For a moment, neither man spoke. The gravity of the question was unmistakable. It wasn't about winning a debate anymore. It was about personal growth, about the ability to evolve. Elon was the first to respond, his tone uncharacteristically measured. "I've spent my entire career trying to push the boundaries of what's possible. I've taken risks, faced countless failures, and never looked back. I don't know if I can just change my course, Keanu. My focus has always been on advancing technology to secure humanity's future, to take us to Mars, to ensure that we survive in the long term. That's not something I can simply walk away from." He paused, looking over at Keanu, his gaze softening. "But I do get what you're saying. I've spent so much time on what's next. I haven't always taken the time to consider the consequences of pushing too fast. I've always believed that the ends justify the means, but maybe I've been wrong about that. Maybe it's not just about reaching the stars. Maybe it's about the people we leave behind on Earth." The audience collectively exhaled, as if they had been holding their breath. Elon's words, though not a full concession, were the closest thing to vulnerability he had shown so far. It was clear that Keanu's perspective had forced him to rethink some of his most deeply held beliefs. Keanu, ever the calm one, absorbed Elon's words quietly. He wasn't surprised by Elon's response, but he knew the question had struck a deep chord within him. Now it was his turn. Keanu took a deep breath, his eyes meeting Elon's with an intensity that was both challenging and understanding. "I'm not asking you to abandon your mission, Elon. I know how much you believe in what you're doing, and honestly, I respect that. But I think what we're both learning in this moment is that no matter how fast we try to move, we can't leave people behind. I've seen it. People falling through the cracks as the world changes around them. And I've seen how fast technology moves, how it becomes the center of everything. But I've also seen the toll it takes on our hearts, on our relationships, on our sense of community." He leaned forward, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "What I'm asking, Elon, is not that you change everything you believe in, but that you think about the human side of your vision. Can we push the world forward and take care of the people in it? Can we look at technology as something that lifts us up, rather than something that divides us even more?" Keanu's words were met with a hush from the audience. The simplicity and sincerity of his message had a powerful effect. This wasn't about being right. It was about the willingness to consider the impact of one's actions, the effect they had on those who didn't have the same privilege, the same access to the future. There was a long pause before Elon spoke again, this time with a softer, almost introspective tone. "I've always believed in doing what needs to be done for the greater good. But I think maybe I've been too focused on the big picture to really see the people who are affected along the way." He looked around the room, his eyes lingering on the audience for a moment, as if searching for something or someone. "I don't have all the answers, but I'm starting to understand that we can't just rush ahead without thinking about the consequences. Maybe it's time to think about the how as much as the what." The room was quiet for a long moment. It wasn't the answer everyone was expecting, but it was real, and that was enough. Keanu nodded, a soft smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I think that's all any of us can do, Elon. To think, and to be willing to listen." The moderator, seeing the emotional weight of the moment, decided to wrap up the debate. "Well, gentlemen," he said, his voice heavy with respect, "what we've seen tonight is a conversation not just about the future of technology, but about the future of humanity itself. You've both shared your truths, your vulnerabilities, and your hopes, and I think we can all agree that the conversation doesn't end here." The audience erupted in applause, but this time it wasn't a loud, boisterous cheer. It was a quiet, appreciative acknowledgement of the journey they had just witnessed. A conversation had begun that could change the way people thought about the intersection of technology and humanity. As the applause died down, Keanu and Elon stood together, shaking hands in a moment that felt like a true turning point. They weren't the same men who had entered the stage hours earlier. The ideological divide still existed, but it had been bridged by mutual respect, a realization that, while their paths might be different, their goals were ultimately the same: a better future for everyone. The debate was over, but the ripples it created were just beginning to unfold. As the lights dimmed on the stage and the crowd slowly dispersed, Keanu and Elon made their way to the backstage area. There was a lingering quiet in the air. The kind of silence that comes after something truly profound has been said. The world had just witnessed two of the most iconic figures of modern times sharing something much deeper than they had ever shared before. In the green room, Keanu stood by the window looking out over the city. The lights of the skyline twinkled like stars in the distance, a reminder that the world in all its complexity was still moving forward. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace. It wasn't about winning the debate. It wasn't about proving that his philosophy on life was superior to Elon's vision for the future. No, it was about the connection they had made, the realization that no matter how different their paths, they were both working toward the same goal in their own way: a better tomorrow. As Keanu looked out over the city, Elon approached him, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jacket. "That was something," Elon said, breaking the silence. His voice was quieter than usual, a reflection of the weight the conversation had carried. "I didn't expect it to go the way it did." Keanu turned toward him, giving a small, understanding smile. "Neither did I. But sometimes it's those unexpected moments that make the biggest impact." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "I've spent my whole career thinking I had the answers, that I knew the right path to take. But now, I'm not so sure anymore." "You've made me think, Keanu." "Really think?" Keanu could see the sincerity in Elon's eyes. This wasn't just about winning a debate or changing the world through technology. This was about questioning one's own beliefs, confronting the uncomfortable truths, and opening up to the possibility that there might be a better way. Not just for the world, but for the people in it. "I don't have all the answers either, Elon," Keanu said softly, his voice carrying a depth of empathy that resonated. "None of us do. We're all just figuring it out as we go. But maybe that's the beauty of it. The journey, the questions, the willingness to keep learning and evolving." For a moment there was silence between them, a silence that felt different from the tension of the debate. It was a silence, filled with understanding, with an acknowledgement of the challenges both men faced in their respective worlds. "I've been so focused on the future," Elon finally spoke again, his gaze drifting toward the horizon, "on pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But maybe I need to start focusing more on the people around me. Maybe I need to find a balance." Keanu smiled, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over him. "We all need to find balance, Elon. It's not about abandoning our missions. It's about remembering why we started them in the first place. The world needs people who dream big, people who push boundaries. But the world also needs people who remember that we're all in this together." Elon seemed to digest Keanu's words for a long time, then nodded slowly. "I think I've been too focused on the destination. Maybe I need to spend more time considering the journey." The air between them seemed to shift, and Keanu could sense that something had changed. This wasn't just a conversation between two men anymore. It was a conversation between two worlds, the world of innovation and progress, and the world of humanity and connection. Both were essential, and perhaps, just perhaps, they could exist together, not as opposing forces, but as complementary ones. "I think we've got a lot to learn from each other," Keanu said with a smile, "and I think the world might just need a little bit of both. Your vision and my belief in human connection." Elon smiled back, though it was a more subdued smile than usual. "You might be right. Maybe that's what the future needs, a little more balance." As the conversation came to a close, both men knew that this meeting would be remembered for more than just the ideas they exchanged. It would be remembered as a moment of genuine reflection, of two people at the top of their fields willing to question their own beliefs and find common ground. The debate had sparked a shift, not just in the way they saw the world, but in the way the world might see them. Elon, the relentless innovator, and Keanu, the philosopher of human connection, had come together in a way that no one could have predicted. And it wasn't just about their individual careers, it was about the broader implications of their work, about creating a future where technology and humanity could coexist, where progress didn't have to come at the expense of the people it was meant to serve. The world might have been watching, but it wasn't just the debate they were captivated by. It was the message that had come through loud and clear, that even the most powerful figures in the world weren't immune to the need for reflection, for growth, and for the desire to build something better, together. As the night drew to a close and the final camera shots were taken, both Keanu and Elon stood in the quiet of the green room, their words still lingering in the air. It was clear that the future was uncertain, but one thing was certain: a new chapter had begun. A chapter where the lines between technology and humanity, progress and compassion, were no longer so stark. They had both learned something important that night, and so had the world. The days following the debate were a whirlwind. The conversation between Keanu and Elon had ignited a global conversation about the intersection of technology, human values, and the direction of the future. Headlines across the world picked up on the unexpected moments from the debate, the raw honesty, the emotional revelations, and the rare glimpse into the personal struggles of two of the most influential men alive today. The social media world was abuzz, with people from all corners of the globe offering their thoughts. The hashtag #SauKeanuandElon started trending worldwide, with discussions ranging from passionate debates about progress and sustainability to calls for a deeper consideration of the human element in technological development. Keanu, who was never one for the spotlight, had retreated to his usual life. He had always believed that the most important conversations were those that happened quietly, away from the cameras and the public eye. But even he couldn't ignore the impact of what had transpired. For days, his phone buzzed with messages and emails from people he admired, people he had never met, all thanking him for the words he had shared during the debate. Elon, on the other hand, found himself caught in a whirlwind he wasn't entirely prepared for. His usual confidence had been tempered by the weight of his words and the ripple effect they had caused. For someone who had been a tireless advocate for technological progress at any cost, it was a difficult thing to reconcile. He had always known the importance of pushing boundaries, but now, for the first time in years, he was questioning what those boundaries truly represented. Despite his usual indifference to public opinion, the feedback from the debate made him pause. Was the way he had approached his vision for the future truly the best path? Could there be a way to honor the human experience while pushing for technological advancement? His thoughts were interrupted by a call from his right-hand man at SpaceX, who had noticed the increasing public discourse surrounding the debate. "Elon, have you seen the numbers?" the voice on the other end asked. "The public response is overwhelming. People are talking about balance, humanity, and progress in a way that we haven't seen before." "I've seen it," Elon replied, rubbing his temples. "It's unexpected. Look, I know you're a big picture guy," the voice continued, "but this shift, this conversation you had with Keanu, it's opening up doors. Maybe there's something to this idea of finding a middle ground. Maybe this is the next phase for us." Elon paused, reflecting on the conversation. The idea of balance had never seemed like a priority before, but now it felt like something worth exploring. Keanu had retreated to his favorite place for reflection, a small cafe in Los Angeles, away from the constant buzz of the world's eyes. As he sipped his coffee, the conversations from the debate replayed in his mind. He didn't care about the fame or the attention. What he cared about was the idea that in his own quiet way, he might have planted a seed in someone else's mind, a seed that could grow into something transformative. Keanu had always been a believer in the importance of human connection, and he knew that if the conversation about technology and humanity was going to move forward, it had to come from a place of empathy. It couldn't be about winning, it had to be about understanding. And perhaps, just perhaps, the seeds of change were taking root in more minds than he could have imagined. Later that afternoon, Keanu received a call from a journalist who had been following the debate closely. "Keanu, thank you for taking the time," the reporter said, his voice both warm and respectful. "There's something I wanted to ask you. With all the conversations happening now, do you believe we're on the cusp of a new era? One where people like you and Elon start collaborating on solutions that prioritize humanity?" Keanu thought for a moment, looking out the cafe window as the city moved at its usual pace. "I think we're already in the midst of it," he said finally. "We're living through a time where technology is advancing faster than ever before. But the most important thing we can do is ensure that the advancements we make don't forget the people behind them. The world needs both the visionaries and the humanists. But the question is whether we're brave enough to bring those two together." The journalist paused. "So do you see a future where you and Elon Musk could actually work together?" Keanu's lips curled into a thoughtful smile. "Who knows?" he replied. "I never would have thought I'd be having a conversation like this with him, but I've learned that life has a way of surprising us. If there's a way to bridge the gap between where we are and where we need to be, I'm willing to explore." The world continued to react to the debate. Both Keanu and Elon's social media accounts were flooded with messages of support and curiosity. Some questioned if the two men could really find common ground, while others believed that this was the beginning of a revolution, a chance for Silicon Valley's greatest minds to start considering the consequences of their innovations. On the other hand, many critics expressed skepticism. Could Elon Musk, the man who had made his fortune by pushing the envelope on artificial intelligence, space travel, and electric vehicles, really embrace the humanistic philosophy that Keanu championed? And could Keanu, the quiet philosopher, really support the idea of taking humanity to Mars when so many problems needed to be solved here on Earth first? Despite the mixed reactions, there was a palpable shift. More and more people were beginning to talk about what it meant to live in a future where technology and empathy weren't at odds but could coexist. In the months that followed, discussions of this nature began to seep into public consciousness. Think pieces, panel discussions, and documentaries emerged, each seeking to unravel the complexities of the conversation between Keanu and Elon. Meanwhile, the two men found themselves occasionally crossing paths again, not on stages, but in more private conversations, in quiet rooms where the weight of the world's eyes didn't hang in the air. They would talk about technology, about humanity, about the world they both wanted to see. And while they didn't have all the answers, one thing was clear. Their paths, however different, were beginning to merge in ways neither had anticipated. Months had passed since the debate, but the world was still buzzing. The impact of the conversation between Keanu and Elon had rippled through the public, sparking debates in boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms across the globe. The unexpected alliance of philosophy and technology had opened the door to a new way of thinking, one that balanced progress with humanity. The two men had become more than just leaders in their fields. They had become symbols of a new kind of leadership. But, as with all things, the challenges were far from over. Elon, in his usual fashion, had continued to push forward with SpaceX, Tesla, and his myriad of other ventures. Yet, as he looked at the trajectory of his companies, he couldn't help but notice something missing. The conversation with Keanu had sparked a question that lingered in his mind. What if the people who would benefit most from these technologies weren't ready for them? What if we're moving too fast, leaving people behind in the rush for innovation? Despite his success, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that the vision he had spent his life chasing, the dream of reaching Mars, of revolutionizing industries, needed to be recalibrated. He had always seen himself as a pioneer, but now he saw the importance of making sure his innovations benefited humanity as a whole, not just a privileged few. For the first time, Elon Musk was considering the human element in his work, not just as a passing thought, but as an integral part of his strategy. One day, after weeks of reflection, Elon called a meeting with his core team at Tesla and SpaceX. The room was filled with the usual suspects: engineers, scientists, and futurists who had dedicated their lives to Elon's vision of the future. But today, Elon wasn't his usual self. He was quieter, more introspective, and above all, more open to collaboration than ever before. "I've been thinking," he began, looking around the room at the eager faces, "about the bigger picture, about what we're really doing here. Yes, we're pushing for technological advancements, but we're also shaping the future for the generations to come. But we can't just be focused on the end goal. We have to think about the journey, about how the people who don't have access to our technologies today will be impacted. It's time we start thinking more about people and less about products." A ripple of surprise ran through the room. Elon had always been the one pushing for results, demanding innovation without delay. But now he was advocating for something far more nuanced, a balance between progress and humanity. Keanu, too, had found himself in a period of introspection. His career had always been defined by his ability to connect with others on an emotional level, to convey messages of love, loss, and humanity through his work. But now he found himself questioning how he could use his platform for something bigger. He had always believed that the world needed more than just action. It needed empathy, compassion, and understanding. In the months since the debate, Keanu had been involved in several grassroots initiatives focused on mental health and human connection. Yet he couldn't help but wonder, what if we could take these initiatives further? What if we could merge my belief in human connection with Elon's vision of technology? Could we create a world where technology is used not just to advance industries, but to build communities, heal trauma, and make the world a more compassionate place? Keanu's thoughts led him to a phone call with an old friend who worked in the tech industry. "You know, I've been thinking about the debate," Keanu said, his voice thoughtful, "and about how the world has responded. What if we could take this moment, this conversation, and turn it into something actionable? What if we could combine the innovation of people like Elon with real, meaningful support for people who are struggling?" The idea stuck with him. Keanu had always believed that true progress wasn't just about building things. It was about building a better future for everyone. He knew that the world wasn't just in need of new technologies, but of a new kind of leadership. One that didn't just focus on efficiency, speed, or profit, but on the well-being of people. A few weeks later, Elon and Keanu found themselves sitting across from each other in a small cafe in Palo Alto, far away from the cameras and the press. It had been some time since their last meeting, but the bond between them had only grown stronger. "You've been busy," Elon remarked, his tone light but curious. "I've heard about your new initiative, focusing on mental health. That's not something I expected to see you involved in." Keanu smiled, a modest glint in his eyes. "You know, I've always thought that if we really want to change the world, we have to start with the people who need it most. Mental health, the E. Way we treat ourselves and each other, that's the foundation for everything. Without it, all the technology, all the progress, it means nothing." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "I get that now. I didn't used to think about it like that. But after everything we talked about during the debate, I realized that progress isn't just about moving forward. It's about making sure we're all moving together." Keanu leaned in, sensing the shift in Elon's thinking. "Exactly. So, what do you think? Could we bring your innovation and my focus on humanity together in some way? Could we create a future where technology helps heal, helps connect rather than just separate people?" Elon's eyes brightened as he thought about it. "I think there's something to that. We've always talked about Mars, about changing the world through technology. But what if the real change starts here on Earth, and it starts with people? What if we could use technology to help people feel less alone, to bring communities together, to help heal the world's wounds?" Keanu smiled. It was the first time in a long while that he had seen Elon truly open to the idea of empathy-driven innovation. "It's a start," Keanu said, "and it's a big one." The two men sat back, the weight of their conversation settling in. They weren't just two leaders from different worlds anymore. They were collaborators, partners in a mission that was as ambitious as it was human. As the weeks passed, Elon and Keanu began to work together in secret. It wasn't about public spectacle or headlines. It was about finding real solutions. They collaborated with experts from both fields, mental health professionals, engineers, scientists, and educators. Their goal was simple but revolutionary: to create a platform where technology could support human well-being, using AI, virtual reality, and other technologies, not just to entertain, but to heal, connect, and foster compassion. The project was unlike anything anyone had seen before. It was ambitious, it was risky, but it was exactly the kind of innovation that the world needed. The time would come soon when they would have to reveal their work to the world. But for now, Keanu and Elon had one thing on their side: the belief that they could truly create something meaningful. It wasn't about proving who was right or wrong, it was about doing the right thing for humanity. And in that, they had found their common ground. The world had shifted, and Keanu and Elon knew they were on the precipice of something monumental. It wasn't just about building new technologies anymore. It wasn't about revolutionizing industries or creating headlines. What had begun as an unexpected clash of ideals between two of the most powerful figures in the world was now evolving into something far greater. It was about using their combined forces to create a better, more connected world, a world where technology didn't just advance human potential, but nurtured it, protected it, and brought people together. Keanu sat in his modest Los Angeles apartment, staring out the window at the city below. It had been a few months since that fateful debate, and he couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. The quiet philosopher was now at the center of one of the most significant initiatives of his life, an initiative he had never expected, but one that felt deeply right. He had spent his life using the power of storytelling to touch people's hearts. Now he was using that same ability to help create a world where people could truly heal, connect, and live with more compassion and understanding. Elon had been working tirelessly with Keanu and their growing team of experts. They had been building prototypes for a new digital platform, one that combined the power of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and cutting-edge mental health technologies. It was designed to be a place where people could find emotional support, community, and healing through technology. Rather than isolating individuals, their vision was for technology to serve as a bridge that could cross barriers of distance, anxiety, and even depression. The team had been meeting secretly, and they were close to unveiling their first fully functioning version of the platform. It wasn't just a tech product, it was a lifeline, a way to ensure that people didn't just survive the digital age, but thrived in it. It wasn't about selling a service, it was about making a genuine, meaningful difference in the lives of others. Keanu received a call one evening from Elon, his voice more upbeat than usual. "We're ready, Keanu," Elon said, excitement threading his words. "We're ready to show the world what we've been working on. It's time." Keanu felt a surge of anticipation. The dream was finally becoming a reality. This wasn't just a project, it was a movement, one that could change the future for the better. "I think we've built something truly special," Keanu said softly, almost in disbelief. "But we have to make sure we're ready for what's to come. This is bigger than both of us." "I know," Elon responded, his tone serious. "But I believe in this, Keanu. I believe in what we're doing. This could be the start of something that changes the world." They agreed to meet the following week in a private location, away from the press, where they could test the platform with a small group of volunteers before the official launch. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People connected, shared, and found support in ways they hadn't experienced before. The platform was intuitive, seamless, and, most importantly, it helped people feel seen. It wasn't about fancy technology or a sleek interface. It was about real human connection. The day of the official launch arrived and the world was waiting. The buzz in the air was palpable. News outlets, social media influencers, and millions of everyday people were watching, waiting to see what Keanu and Elon had created together. The platform was unveiled live on a global streaming event, and the response was nothing short of electric. Elon Musk, usually a man of few words when it came to his public persona, stood beside Keanu on stage. The crowd in front of them was a mix of reporters, industry leaders, and tech enthusiasts. But in that moment, it wasn't about the applause or the accolades. It was about something bigger. I never thought I'd find myself standing here next to Keanu talking about mental health and human connection, Elon began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. But through this collaboration, I've learned something vital. Technology has the power to change the world, but it must be used in service of people, to help them, to connect them, to heal them. Keanu stepped forward, his voice calm, but carrying weight. We live in an age where technology is changing everything. It's changing the way we communicate, the way we work, and the way we experience life. But it's also changing how we feel. And sometimes that change can be isolating. We wanted to create something that brings people together, that helps them not just survive but thrive. The platform was unveiled on the screen behind them. An immersive, user-friendly interface designed to foster real connections. People could enter virtual spaces where they could talk to others, seek support from mental health professionals, and engage in experiences that promoted empathy and understanding. It was a place where the human heart was the center, and technology was the tool to help nurture it. The launch sparked a wave of interest across the globe. News outlets hailed it as a new frontier in human-centered technology. People from all walks of life flooded the platform, eager to explore this new form of connection. For the first time in a long time, many felt like they were not alone. Elon and Keanu sat back, watching the reactions pour in. The project was just beginning, but they knew it was already making an impact. The world wasn't just talking about them anymore. They were talking about the future, about humanity, and about what technology could become if used responsibly and with compassion. Keanu smiled, the weight of the journey settling on his shoulders. We've done something good here, haven't we? Elon, who had never been one for sentimentality, nodded. Yeah, we have, and it's just the beginning. As the weeks turned into months, Keanu and Elon continued to develop the platform, constantly improving it based on feedback from users and experts. It became a hub for collaboration, support, and progress. They brought in artists, educators, and social workers to help shape the experience. They held discussions about the ethical implications of AI, about how to ensure that technology wasn't just efficient, but also ethical. Through it all, Keanu and Elon had become more than just colleagues. They had become partners in a shared vision for a better world. They knew that the journey ahead would be long and that there would be setbacks, but they also knew that, together, they could make a difference, one person at a time. The world watched as the alliance between the quiet philosopher and the visionary entrepreneur continued to grow, and with it, the hope that a more compassionate, connected future was within reach. As the conversation around technology and humanity evolved, Keanu and Elon had sparked a movement that would transcend industries, borders, and generations. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward even when things get tough?